cool season grasses research that we do for perennial ryegrass. As part of that, somebody will count how, and Mark will explain it later in his one, basically we're monitoring how quickly the baselines wear out and how quickly the plant deteriorates, and then take that back into the research and actually look at the cultivars we're using and saying, well, actually, are there different ones that are actually wearing better? You've always got those factors of whether it's a hot championships, a dry, a cold, will always have a variance on the turf itself, but more often than not, you can, those variables you can measure against through different championships. And then hardness, this is probably one of our biggest ones. It's all about the hardness for us and making sure the ball bounce comes up. Our magic number is 200 gravities. If we can be in and around 200 for day one, for us, there's a good way off between court's hard enough for play, but there's still enough moisture in the plant that, bearing in mind we've got 3 weeks to get through, and then we only go one way moisture breathing wise, it only goes down. So we're from when practice starts till the end of the championships, we're essentially chasing our tail. The grass is slowly dying, and it's how slowly we can slow that process down and how we can manage it through.
What's the hardness readings at the end of the championship?
So normally, and this is the really important one for us for the middle Sunday, a lot of the players in the other 3 Grand Slams will always play the middle Sunday. For us, because it's a finite surface, it's a window of opportunity on the Saturday night, we can double the irrigation programme, and then on the Sunday morning put another one through. So we normally run up for around about 260 by that middle Saturday. We can then drop it back down to about 220 for that Monday again. And then by finals weekend, we're back up to about, normally average about 270. But then we have some of the wheelchair tennis on the back courts, we just let them go off. So we need them at about 300 plus just to be able to get the wheelchairs on there.
Yeah.
And the fact that they move so quickly on the courts now that it has to be that hard. So that's the issue that we always have, players saying, oh, we should be playing the Sunday, the courts aren't being played on, but we need that day purely because of grass survival.
So is that a constant battle to keep that Sunday?
Yeah.
Is it a yearly battle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they understand it because it's needed, and you tend to find the years when it's been really wet and we've had to use the middle Sunday to catch up on the schedule. Invariably, it's because you're behind schedule on the outside court. So when you get to the end of the championships, you pretty much play the same amount of hours within reason for the championships, whether you've played a middle Sunday or not. So it kind of weighs up itself anyway. The challenge we always have at the start of the championships, because it's the best of 3 and the best of 5, you never quite know how long the match is going to go for. So it's weird that on average, most of the courts are around about 70 to 80 hours within that 2 weeks of real hard play. And invariably it's always the same, but you never know when a match is coming out. And it's made up from different time scales of women and men. So it's always the dreaded one. If you get a big 5-setter in centre court early in the tournament, can sometimes set it up for a challenging 2 weeks because you're on the back foot already. 10 days out, we start covering overnight, invariably, just so everybody can get a decent night's sleep, because what will happen is that we'll think, right, it's not going to rain tonight, let's keep the covers off, let's get some airflow to the courts, they really need it. 3 AM, you'll be laying in bed and you can just hear a roll of thunder in the background and you're uncovered. So just to stop that happening, we just cover, come what may. We may leave the covers flat and then just inflate them in the morning if we need to get any water off, but invariably we'll start covering them. 9 days out, official practice starts. So when I was going back to all the other tennis tournaments, our practice pre-Wimbledon is longer than every other grass court's whole tournament plus practice. So we're doing more than what they're doing even before we started on the match courts. Players can come in, depending on how they're seeded, they get X amount of practice sessions per day, depending on where you're ranked for the championships. Most of them will be in from about 5 days counting down. Some of them will come in earlier and just play other tournaments and just fly out, come back, but always use their hub for the championship. So they'll always be here practicing on their days when they're not playing in other tournaments. Hawkeye then moves in the week before. At the moment, or up until 2020, we only had Hawkeye on 6 of the courts. The aspiration has always been they want Hawkeye on every single court. So for 2020, we're going to have Hawkeye on all 18 championship courts. It normally takes them about 4 or 5 hours to calibrate the cameras per court, and they're normally coming in 2 or 3 times during the championships to recalibrate. One of the issues that Hawkeye has always had is that when they do other tournaments, say at the Aussie Open or the US Open, because it's a cement surface and it doesn't move, what they tend to find is when they calibrate at the start of the championships, they then have to calibrate during the middle at the end, because as we're drying the court down, it contracts the actual lines and the whole court will move. So then they have to recalibrate the lines to our lines rather than the other way around, which would normally happen. Also, we have the ITF will come in and they start pace testing the courts on practice week. They will come in and choose which courts they want to speed test. We have a range that we have to be in for all of the courts, so they'll always practice stadium, match courts, practice courts, and they'll just go around and they'll test all the speeds for them, and then we have a mean average of what we've got to be in. So between that and Hawkeye and the SRI coming in, there's a lot of measurements and a lot of criteria that we have to stick to for all of the 38 grass courts. So they have to be consistent. So our most southerly court, Court 2, and our most northerly practice courts is just over half a mile away. And then you've got all of those little microclimates with the stadium. So the challenge for the team is always really great to try and make sure that it doesn't matter what court Federer goes to, whether it's a stadium, a match court, practice court, they shouldn't see any difference. They should all be playing the same. 3 days out in the park, people start queuing for the championships. So this particular people, for the first, up until the men's quarterfinals, there's 2,000 tickets in centre court that go on general sale every single day. They're not the ones that go into the ballot. So people will then start queuing for those. So I've known people that will take a week off holiday, get in the queue, and then what will happen is they'll pack the tent away. There's a special storage place where they're allowed to store their tents. We put in temporary showers and toilets for them, so it almost becomes a little community. They have barbecues in the evenings. They'll then go and watch the tennis till about 6 o'clock. Then they'll go back to the park. They'll then pick up their tent. They'll set back up in the queue again, and then they'll queue overnight, ready for the next 2,000 tickets. And there'll be a hardcore people that will take a week's holiday and spend the whole week in a tented community watching tennis. It's pretty amazing to see. 2 days out, the dreaded scissors come out. If you've turned up late for work, or you're not quite putting your weight, these are the sort of jobs you may end up with for the day. And then these, for the 2 weeks of the championships, these are all of the events that we play. I actually do need to add 2 because we've actually done we've actually added another 2 events in the wheelchair. So we've gone to 18 events for the championships now. We have to get through, I think it is 673 matches to complete the championships. So we have around about, so if you think about potential rain delays in the first week of the championships, we normally need to get through around about 80 matches a day for the first 2 rounds. So from the Monday to the Thursday, if we have a complete washout on day 1, it means that we're already 80 matches behind. So for day 2, day 3, we've got to try and absorb an extra 80 matches into the 160 matches that we've already got to complete. So for us, the biggest challenge is the first week. There's so many players out there in the first week. In the second week, if you get rain, and you just deal with it, and you can get away with it. So this is kind of a bit of a summary for the championships. So if you take into account that we have to start drying down the courts about a week before practice, then you've got the 9 days, and then you've got the 2 weeks. We're pretty much in and around above 200 gravities for a whole month, restricted water. You never quite know what the weather's going to be, whether you get hot periods, a lot of rain. Even if it's raining a lot, we're still having to cover, so we're still losing that moisture through the plant uptake. So it becomes a real challenge for the team. Again, just for the championships alone, over 3,000 hours played. That doesn't sort of come into the fact that we've had members play before and over as well. Again, as I said earlier, the total global audience now. Seems to be skyrocketing through. And we had this year, only for the second time, over 500,000 people through the doors. So we've always been restricted. We certainly aren't the biggest Grand Slam for footfall, purely because the local authority from where we are and sort of transporting sort of to get to and fro, it just means that we can't get too many people in because it's just for health and safety, we just can't get them away in the evenings. And then this is probably, we go into our busiest 3 months of the year. So we've kind of got over the championships. The guys, you know, the membership themselves allow us 72 hours from championship finish, last ball struck, to having grass courts available again for members. So we're given a day and a half, then courts are normally up and running by the sort of Tuesday, Wednesday for members again. At this point is when we'll start splitting the teams up. This becomes a really busy period for us. We've got some real big matches. We have the UK juniors, we have the UK veterans. They all take up at least 18 to 20 grass courts each for a week's tournament, as well as members play and members matches. We also then go into renovations as well. So we have a team getting tournament prep. We'll also have a renovation prep team as well. And this is essentially what we'll do. We'll go in, we'll shave off the surface, we'll take it back to the sort of plant material. We kind of probably leave about 40% of the ryegrass in there. The younger ones from the year before tends to be the crowns that are a little bit more robust, and we tend to keep those in.